So what do we have to do then when it comes to calculation groups? What are they, and how can I put them into my file and actually make any really use out of them? Because I just don't understand. They're not making sense to us. In terms of what's going on, it's always good to know, isn't it? So why don't you just take a minute now to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notify icon, and then you'll be able to be told when things are going on or changing on the channel. So here we are, Power BI desktop, and here I am looking at the Power BI file that's got the data model in it. And if you remember, we built this last week, did not use this report. Really simple, okay? You want to try and encourage people not to use these files as much as possible. Keep it separate, and then it means that when you do make updates, you're just remapping secondary report files that have become business critical, rather than having a report that's grown and grown and grown in one big file and then having to manage that and make all sorts of changes to it. Because what you might find is that you need to stick some of the data needs to stay on the legacy report pack just while it runs its course. Stranger things have happened. If you do it this way and have secondary report files and different master files for your main data model, your life is much simpler. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure we click on external tools and that we've got Tabular Editor installed. For the sake of the day, I'm going to use the free version. I know they have now released the 3.0 paid version that does allow access to the XMLA endpoints of premium per user. I don't know, is honestly my view on it, so I'll keep an eye on it, I'll see what's happening, I'll no doubt have a look and a play and see if it's worth spending the money on. I don't know at this point if it is or if it isn't, so please don't ask me for a review. But I'll click Tabular Editor now. Okay, you can see this is connected. If we'll expand tables, it's connected to my data model. Okay, everything's here. What we're going to do is create a calculation group. Now a calculation group, it doesn't make sense when you first kind of go, what is it? It allows you to take a base measure and effectively you can treat a set of additional measures, and they're called calculation items, as a dimension. Okay, so it allows you to make a dimension measure set. It'll make sense when you see it. Okay, there is another way of doing something similar. It's called disconnected tables. It's a bit less portable, but it's still of use. Calculation items, though, they're very good calculation groups, and their calculation items are very useful for it. So I'll show you this, and we might have a look at a disconnected table another day. Okay. So how do we set up a calculation group? It's very simple. Under tables, we right click, and under create new, we can pick create a new calculation group, sorry. And let's give this a name. I'm going to call this year over year, so YOY. Under it, what you'll see, if we expand, is it's got a name. I would recommend you change the name, but you can't change it here. You change it down at the bottom, right, where you've got name. Year over year calculations. Year over year calculations. Okay. Now you've done that there, it's available. Under calculation items, what you need to do for each of them is right click and create a new calculation item. And let's get the first one. And this is always, my advice is to have the first one be the basic, right? In terms of what's the measure that you're putting against this, right? So the base. So I'm going to call this current. Just because that makes more sense. People then go, oh, I get current, yeah. Okay? And we'll put the DAX statement in for it. You don't need to put equals, so remember, there's no equals in this. Selected measure. Okay? That's what that's going to be. And we'll validate that by clicking the little thing. It says I. That's great. You see it's got a little question mark there. That's because this hasn't been saved back into the main database file, as it calls it. It's a model.bim file that's related to your Power BI file. Or sorry, your Power BI data model. And yeah, we'll not get into it today. It'll be, you know, okay. Let's create a new one. I'm going to create a new calculation item. Again, so previous year. Okay. So what we're going to do with this one is relatively simple, isn't it? How do we do a previous year? Can you remember? Well, let's calculate. Open brackets. Tab that in. It's going to be selected measure, when I spell it right, open brackets, close brackets, comma, same period last year, open brackets, right. At this point you need to bring in your calendar. I'll just zoom out a bit just so it's easier for me rather than flying around, and I'm just going to drag the field onto it. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to type, you can drag and drop other items through. Okay, now at this point what I want to do is just talk a little bit about the syntax here. So I hope you can work out selected measure is whatever you used, and again if we go back to our pivot table analogy, so whatever you used as your base value that's going in the middle, right? So your aggregation is your selected measure for this. Okay? Do not put other measures in here as much as possible. There may be ones that you need to use, but don't. The other thing to remember with calculation items is they are a little bit difficult, shall we say, with nesting. So you need to kind of avoid nesting as much as possible. And we'll see that in the next one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of this, and I'm going to right click on it. I'm just going to use Control C, sorry, and copy it. Let's go back down to our next one of these and go right, new calculation item, YOY percent change. I notice that one hasn't kept its name, that does happen. And this time, it would be really tempting to say, right, we're just going to use previous year. Don't. Okay, you need to start using variables. So VAR for variable last year equals that. Okay, just pasting that in. Let's go VAR CY, current year, equals selected measure. Okay, so we've got those two pieces, the base ones done, haven't we? So now I'm just going to put in a result. This is going to be the divide. So it is divide current year by last year, and then we'll give it blank. Okay, so if there's no value, just be blank. Okay, I've done a divide like that because what I wanted to do in the result, or the return, sorry, return result, yeah, is to actually do a validation. Okay, because what we don't want to do is have it going, well, you know, there's all sorts of changes here when they're not needed. So I'm going to do an if, open brackets, is blank, open brackets, result. I want it to be blank. Otherwise, 1 minus result, let's put that in brackets actually, 1 minus result multiplied by minus 1. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Validate it. That always helps, doesn't it? Hit validation. You can always hit the format the DAX, and it'll then restructure it as DAX formatter thinks it should be. So that looks fine. Okay, so I've now got these. Oh, I need to change the name of this one, don't we? So down at the bottom again, to change the name. Previous year in it this time. Okay, so we've now got 3 calculations there. So what I need to do now is hit the cube save button. Okay, so this is going to save it back to my connected database, so my Power BI file. So I'm going to hit save. So now it is saved to Power BI, and if we minimize this, if we come back to Power BI, you'll see that you get the yellow banner that says you need to manually refresh. So we'll go in there and we'll click refresh now. Okay, I'm going to create a new page, and I recommend when you do add measures, you do things like, use a new page. Okay, it's going to call it scratch because it's just something that we want to do. And what we're looking to be able to do is to understand, for example, if we bring in the journeys and let's say years, because it's year over year, how things have changed over time. So if I make this into a pivot table, a matrix, okay, we've got something we can understand. Now let's expand this year over year. And what you can see is we've got this year over year calculations. Well, where's all my calculation items, you say? Well, they all appear when you drop this into something. So let's put it in as a column, and suddenly you see we've got values like this. But my year over year percentage change doesn't look right because it's a number like everything else is a number. So that's no good. So how can I fix that? If we go back to our thing here, back to our Tabular Editor, and we click on our year over year percentage change, you can see down here you've got a formatting options. So if we put this in, so speech marks 0.00%, okay, so we want 2 decimal places, so let's go enter. Okay, and now we come back over to here, let's save this again, zoom out, and let's minimize. From on the right screen, minimize, and we now see that we've got these changes. Okay, so the reality, we know 2021 is going to be terrible for us because it's just, there's 206 journeys that finished after midnight. Okay, so we probably wouldn't, we'd look to exclude that, but apart from it, you can see 2017 is blank, which is what we want because we've got no data for the previous year, so it's right for it to be, I don't know. Okay, so that's blank. For the rest though, we can see there is a decrease, so we've dropped nearly 10% in taxi ridership from 2018. So the difference between 2018 and 2017 is that. So we can do this, we can see, oh great, I've got these 3 together. But the nice thing about calculation items and the way that they're structured is you can effectively go in the filters for the visual and decide which one you want. So we could actually not show everything and say, well, we just want to see the year over year percentage change. That's the only one we're interested in. What's happening with it? And then at that point, you're starting to get a lot more power out of this because you can start to build up pieces where it's just going to show you, here is the selected measure or the selected value from something. And where it becomes useful isn't just in here. If we were to go and remove journeys, for example, and put in tip percentage, we can suddenly see this works just as well with tip percentage. We can change that as well. We could say, well, we want to see it with from the total tip amount. We can put the 2 together. to the total tip amount and how that's changed. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of 2021 just because it's annoying me. And all of a sudden, we get there. Oh, we're starting to pull this and the value add for this, because suddenly I'm able to compare the year-over-year percentage changes across lots of different metrics with a click of a button. And I haven't had to write that whole data structure around for each and every metric that I'd like to use it with. It's just dropped it in and off it goes. And there's going to be ones where you find that's not worked properly. And you might well then need to say, well, don't use this measure with the calculation group, and that's fine. You can put that in as the properties of field or as part of it, because obviously you still have that capability. If we go further in, down here, we can put a description, not suitable to use with whatever, okay? Alright, so we've finished that, we've published it up. Now what do we say we're going to do? We're going to fix our Power BI workspaces. Let's get those things sorted out, because what I did before, I don't know if you can remember, is we had everything going into the data model workspace, and I've said this enough times, oh, we don't want to use this, we shouldn't be using our data model workspaces. So let's go through, let's look for NYC for here, and what we've got is this data model New York City. Hey, and we've got 3 reports in there. We've got the yellow taxi report, which is the didn't use, do not use, nothing to see here. We've got our main report, and we've got our airports report. And what I thought for the free report that I'm going to do is I would set up something similar to this. So you can copy and paste stuff across between Power BI report files. You can copy and paste the visuals. It will retain any specific filters that they've got, but it's not ideal really for a long-term way of doing it. So what I did was I started with the airport file and I just called it free report. Okay, and I'll just show you what I've done here. Okay, so here it is, right? And I thought, well, this is going to work for us, isn't it? Okay, because we've got your journeys by year and you can pick and choose what you want. You've got a summary, we can see a breakdown of things, and then I've put some buttons in that you can pick and choose to go between different areas. So everything should work, shouldn't it? Right? So the next thing is going to be, if we go back through to our Power BI area, we can click on there and we can choose to create a workspace. Now, when you're creating workspaces like this, I mean, the kind of way I'm advocating it, and it's up to you really what works for you when you do this. The way I'm suggesting it is that you've got a data space, right? And this makes sense. It might not be Power BI necessarily that you're doing it. You might have your data coming from other locations. I use a data one because we're using a data flow or data flows to pick up and import all the data. So we've got a data flows location, right? That's dedicated. And then to me that makes sense because we might choose to have a 3-tiered delivery cycle. So we might have the data model workspaces might have a dev, a QA, and a prod version. Okay, that works. Right? And then, but you don't want to have dev, QA, and prod data if you don't need to. It's the amount of times that we've done testing against QA or even dev data and it's passed, and then you put it to production and it stops working. If you can test your changes against your production data in dev and QA, right, it's more reliable. What the reason generally for doing dev and QA in a separate system is around you don't want to impact your production system with changes or anything like that. But the nature of Power BI is it's a read. Well, you ain't going to do that, and because it's a data flow, you aren't going to impact a production system by additional loads against it. You're going to have, here is the production data set, or set of data, because it's not a data set at that point, set of data, data tables, that are available for you to run whatever you want against. And we could then plumb different models and do different pulls against that, and that would all work. So you might have a 3-tier system where you've got one set of data that's imported somewhere. That could be your Azure, That could be data flows, that could just be a SQL on site. There's all sorts of on-premise SQL, Azure SQL, right? There's lots of options, okay? The main thing with this is that you need to think, where's our data going to be, right? Once you've decided where your data is going to be, the next thing you need to look at, the next thing that we need to think through is around what's our naming convention, okay? So what I've got for these, right, is DF for data flow, DM for data model, and I was going to put AP for app, right? Because generally you want to be sharing app content with your consumers, not specific reports. I know when we do the free report sharing, it's a specific report. That's really bad. As a general rule of thumb, avoid it like the plague, right? Let Teams deal with it. Teams works really well with sharing content with it. You can share a Power BI workspace with a team, and then as long as that person is in the team and has a Power BI subscription, of course, they will be able to view the report content. It saves me or you having to manage their access rates to it. So I'm going to call this AP NYC yellow taxis. Okay. Under advanced, I'm just going to change this because it's going to say it wants to be premium per user. Say, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to click save. Right? So I've now got this workspace available. Do we? Yeah? Perfect. Alright, so I've published the main report to this area just so we can see report in the app New York Center. Okay, and we'll be able to go into here, and of course we can tick to include it or exclude it from the app. Okay, and this is a great way of sharing what's going on, and you can also put in admin areas in terms of I'm testing this next stage of the report. And again, you might untick that, and again that helps maybe mitigate. Do you need a separate QA? Do you not? I don't want to get into saying what you have to do. There are a lot of options available to you. The main thing is keep saying, understand what's available and pick one that works for you and is going to work consistently for you as well, because you're going to need to do this for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, right? There's a lot that will ride on doing this properly. In terms of our free report that we've showed you, okay, so if we'll go back to our free report, hey, if you're going to publish things to the web and embed them so that everyone can see them, which again, don't do it, okay? I do these so you guys can see the report content that's built and actually get that experience of clicking through. Okay, and I've got a few of these now that are published up and shared, but these cannot jump between data model workspace and an app workspace. So we have to publish this to the app, sorry, to the data model workspace. Yeah, that's what I want to say. So if I go here, let's zoom in, let's click publish, save it, yeah, why I pick a location. So this is going to be DM NYC taxis, select that, right, and publish it. Okay, now the nice thing about this is, if you remember, right, I've just published to the main area on main report. So what I could do in theory is I could publish the airport report as well and do all that. So we could pretend I've done all that. This is now ready, good to go. And I could then choose, at some point we're going to publish this app once my customer base knows that it's coming. But if we go back to the data model New York taxis, we can see we've got this new one. So we can go in and we can choose to delete the reports that we don't need. So let's delete that one. Let's delete this one. Okay, and we know that the yellow taxis one, we've got our free report. And what I'll do is I'm going to show you how to do this, and please try. And if it lets you, you need to get in touch with your Power BI admin, because it shouldn't be letting you do this for yours, right? I've gone through and enabled it for me specifically, so that me and a couple of other people in the organization can publish these, but generally, no, this is bad juju. No, do not do. Okay, I'm going to hit publish to web. Alright, so we can see, here's what it's going to look like. Okay, we can put a picture with it, so I'll tell you what, let's put a picture with it. Let's just use this little picture. Okay, and that'll then make it, that's what people will see when they come to it. default page is going to be overview. I've got a size for it. So we can now, let's copy that and hit close. Okay, so we can test that. If we go click on the new tab, let's paste that in. And we get a full screen image of that. And if we click on it, it takes us to the free report. So what I'll do is I will share the URL below in the video and you will be able to have a look. So what do you reckon then? Calculation groups and the calculation items are incredibly powerful. If there are basic static measures that you use consistently, which there will be, you know, you might have like that base journey count like we've got. We could write a total month to date, total year to date. We could do all those available through calculation groups. And we might have the year to date calculation group set, the month to date calculation group set, the year over year change set, and you can have 5, 6, you know, maybe 10, as far as you know, as many as you want to go, calculation groups that then are going to make it much easier for your consumers to be able to build reports that do what they want. So we know, for example, earlier in the week we did the video, because you all watched it, of course, because you're all subscribed down below. We watched the video, we did the video about where we had to write the last year measure and a year over year change measure. Suddenly we can have all that written for us. And in the example I showed, we did some intelligence around it this time where we dropped off the 100% or whatever it was, so we're actually changing it. There's all sorts of things that you might want to do, you know, that you need to do with these things. So we could look at the change a bit in more detail. We could say, well, we want to know what the difference is, so between the two values. So you could do a minus or a plus. So yeah, take the last year minus the current year. You can do all of that and piece together what it is you need your metrics to do, and then simply you just pick and choose from the drop down of which calculation items you want to show in your visualization layer. And that will work very well for you, and it's a good consistent way of accessing and using your data. So we will go through. One of the things that I've seen some comments about is actually mapping and getting the shape files and doing that kind of thing. So we'll have a deep dive next week into maps and actually how we build those shape files, because I think the key thing, and there's a definite gap, is that shape files, for all they look like maps often, like we often put them and think of them the same, is they're not maps. Huh? Right, they're a shape, and you assign values to a shape, and then a shape has a shape as well. And yeah, for all we put them on map. Do you know what? We'll see you next week. For now though, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Take care. Ta-da.